I was born in Pawleys Island. My parents, my mother's name is Annie McCant Deas, and my father is Joseph Deas, which I didn't know too well because at an early age he got sick and he went to the hospital for some period of time. There were 6 of us, yes. One sister, 5 brothers, you know, from the Deas line. And then my mother and father both had a second marriage. So from that, I have 3, 4. So there were about 10 or 11 of us totally. Pawleys was, to me, I did not know my dad because he had gone on to rest. And cousins and no cousins kind of gravitated to me because I'd wanted, you know, when you lose a parent, and particularly your father, you are seeking, or I was seeking, a kind of a father image. And in order for, and this is just a you know, young preteen thought, that in order for me to be acknowledged and be loved by the community, I had to be the best in something. And my best in something was the books, okay? And through that, when I left the church school that I attended, classroom in the old church that we had there, and went to Miss Ruby's school, that kind of entailed how much the community received me, and it was more or less multiplied by the care and concern that Miss Ruby and William Forsythe placed upon me also. But it was all, and it still is that one should never give up on life. And that's why I'm active now, and that's how I was taught by Ms. Ruby, that you just strive to be a better person every day. And that's how I live, and that's where I am today. I would say fair, but that would be unfair to make that kind of a statement. Miss Ruby was a very compassionate but strict instructor and friend. I went to Faith Memorial School, I think it was in 1946. And for 2 years, she taught the 5th and 6th grade to me. And that was the beginning of discipline. I guess her amour was that if you were attending her school, and particularly in her class, you will get your lesson, bring in your assignment, and if you didn't do that, there were consequences that you did not want to feel or see. Yes, so she was very compassionate. And I think at that time, because of deep segregation and no transportation for the blacks at that time, as far as public school buses and so forth. Faith Memorial School was the core for us that live on the southern part, the southern causeway, all the way up to Merz Inlet. And probably at some time, there were probably 75, 80 students in that one building. Well, the impact is still going on. That's why I'm still active, because she was that kind of person. She was active in the classroom, and she was also extremely active with our parents. That relationship went on when she was alive with us, and it still impacts me today, because I think that's where I have really received, I would say, the mindset to go out and reach for the sky. And that's how she taught us, to reach for the sky. And if you really believe what she was teaching, then you would be reaching for the sky. So I have not cut off the relationship that I had from, I think, 1946 up until now. Some of us that were really dedicated to the school, we had to, report to her, bring our report cards back to her and Reverend Forsythe when we were in high school. And from that, when I would come home from either Chicago, I think, and Cincinnati, those were the two major employment centers for me, I would always stop off at her school, because it was a kind of a mandate. And from those that were, I wouldn't call myself successful, but those that got her teaching, that you would have to come back and make an appearance 1 day or 2 days with the children at the school at that time. Just to say, you know, this is Norman. He was here from 1946 to 1950, and now he is A, B, C, and D in the world. So that's the kind of impact that she had on the vast majority of us who went to that school. Reverend Forsythe took over from the 6th to the 8th, and that's when we had to graduate and go to Howard High School in Georgetown. But Reverend Forsythe he did not have the compassion that Miss Ruby had. He was a strict military type person, and you did not cut any fool or play hooky around him. I mean, if you played hooky, Miss Ruby would say, "Oh, son, come let me patch you up." But if you fool around with Reverend Forsythe, he will patch you up, but it will be another kind of patching. I mean, he's very, very strict, very strict. And if you were able to meet some of my classmates, they would always call me Reverend Forsythe, because I was scared of him, and I would get my lesson. And, you know, we had that kind of relationship, because for 2 years, from the 7th and 8th grade, I was really his mailman, because I rode the bicycle, go down to the mail, to the post office, pick up the mail, and come back. And that's the kind of trust that he had in me and those that were, you know, before me. But he was very strict. Study. study, pay attention, and both Reverend Forsythe and Miss Ruby demanded respect. And that permeated throughout Pawleys Island and also Georgetown. When I went to Harvard, I graduated from Faith Memorial School as a valedictorian. So both Miss Ruby and Reverend Forsythe expected me to be good at Howard High School. Know the competition, but we who graduated from Faith Memorial School had a flag to carry us, okay, because that school was really one that taught honesty, respect, and commitment to getting your lesson done. That foundation, and no, you recognize it through both Miss Ruby and Reverend Forsythe, that the conditions that are the condition that I grew up in, okay, it was just plain poverty, okay, and I guess the relief was to go to that school because that school was undergirded with love and a mandate that when you leave Faith Memorial School, that you have a responsibility to carry what you've been taught, not only in the book, but your lifespan on to the next phase. And the next phase for me was Howard High School. And I left Howard High School as the salutator. And the young lady, now she's passed now, but there's Catherine Besalou. We were in the same grade. She went to Georgetown 1 year prior to me. She was a valedictorian. So that was a big plus for Faith Memorial School and for that, for the area there in Pawleys Island, because we showed out and show off to the greater Georgetown area that the Faith Memorial School was some school to be reckoned with. And you know, the students that graduated from there had to be reckoned with when we got to Georgetown. And the teachers, they didn't know us too well, but that first semester, they knew that Reverend Forsythe had sent some good students there, you know, even previous to my enrolling at Howard. What I got from Faith Memorial School when I was there was that you do the best, and if you do the best, you are going to be the best. And that's how I went to Georgetown High School with that. I mean, as a young person, I wanted to be the best. And I have a younger brother, and every 6 weeks that, from the 9th grade to the 12th at Howard High School, if I was not in the one of the 5 top students when the dean list came out, my brother would get mad with me. So I had, my young brother, he was just pushing. I said, well, you can do it. And, and it didn't stop there. My brother's alive today, and he still thinks that I can walk on water. I said, yeah, I can walk on water, but it's ankle deep. Okay, but that's the kind of relationship, you know, that came from him also. You know, on top of what the educators were saying, he just really had. I could not do anything wrong as long as if I got below the top 5, then he would just really get mad with me. He said, you ain't, you know, I thought you were going to be the top and so forth. Most of the time I was on top of that dean list, yes. You know, prior to 1950, a lot of folks previously went to the 8th grade, and you referred to what Johnny said about Julius Blake. 8th grade, my brother, older than I, 8th grade. And that education at that time was perhaps probably comparable to a college education today. I mean, they could go out and very respectful, ma'am, that when you graduated, left Miss Ruby and William Forsythe, you had respect for your fellow persons. I mean, a lot of respect, because you're not only doing it for yourself, you were representing that school. I went to Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte, and you know, you kind of build on things in the past, and the past was really Miss Ruby and Reverend Forsythe. So when I got to to Howard High School, there were teachers there also that were, to me, they were not as committed, but if a student showed something in him or her, you had some teachers that really push you to move forward. And one of my major teachers at Howard High School was Moselle Lawrence Smith. And she graduated from Johnson C. Smith University, and she said, well, you go to Johnson C. Smith. So how am I going to get there? I don't have any money. She said, just go. And I went. I had that kind of nerve to go. And when they said, well, pay for, you brought some money? So no, they told me to come because there's scholarship coming in, and I never got no scholarship, but I did work, you know, to help along with my siblings and my mom. But no, I went on to Smith and graduated from Smith as in economics and so forth. No, after I retired, yes, I retired in 1990. And in 1991, relocated back here. And at that time, I would go down and visit, but Miss Ruby was sick. But she said, Norman, you know, I want you to just come and be around the children so you could tell them something, they could see something. And I did that, and then I think she passed in 1992. And then I became a full-time volunteer. Every day I was at that school, and from 92 until the closing in 2000. The typical day for me was really days of enjoyment. I was away from my career, And there were children that perhaps economically were a little better off than me because of no father and so forth. We're very, very poor. And I could relate to them my experience from poverty to some degree of economic stability. So I was with them every day, and I think from the kindergarten, I was like a little God or something with the children, because it is really kind of got attached to me. And I also assisted some of the other volunteer teachers into doing math. I was extremely good in math in my younger days at Faith Memorial School. So they kind of gravitated to me in that respect. So the relationship was a period of saying to the community at large, and particularly to Reverend Forsythe and Miss Ruby, in memory that I am here, and I kept the promise that I made when I would visit her, between vacation time and coming home, that I would certainly be available to do volunteer work when I retired. And that's what I did from 1992 to 2000. And it was daily. It was not just come in and say hello and something. Taught, stayed with the young people to a lot of the children had fathers, but they just kind of, gravitated to my style of being with them, because I didn't, I was no true teacher, but I was just a friend to them, and they kind of liked that, because they had a little liberty with me. I could, we had lady teachers, so I was the only man there, so I would take them out to recess, had them to do a little walking, rain or shine. They would want to go out for the recess, and we would march from the school down to close to the highway, and then we would come back, we'd play a little basketball, do a little running, and that's what they liked about me, because we could get away from, doing things that made them feel good, and it certainly made me feel good that they were able to have those kind of freedom and still get the work done. Visiting home and so forth, Miss Ruby would always mandate it, and I know she loved me because I was not a hard-headed person. I really hit the books because I was a little afraid of both of them. So, but she would always say to me, Norman, I want you to just come back and visit the children and just talk to them. So I would do that every time if I came home during the school term, I would certainly, that was my stopping place. Well, you can't have an economically good life without an education, okay? You use education not as, something you kind of have an ego trip on, that, I'm educated, I've been to college and so forth, so here I am, I've made it. To me, education is a progressive kind of thing, that if And this is what Miss Ruby and William Forsythe did, and also the teacher that I mentioned in Georgia, is that you give so others can learn and live. Okay, so that's how I looked at my life, and I carried that throughout my career with the Housing and Urban Development and the Federal Housing Administration. Is that there were always individuals, black and mostly black and whites, that you would always try to pull them up to either be comparable to you or try to get to where you are, or even surpass where you are. And that's how, that nice little village in Pawleys Island, the southern part of Pawleys Island. I was, because of all of those attributes from the village and also Miss Ruby and Reverend Forsythe, I was fortunate enough, without money, to be the first one from that village to go to college. And from that track not made it possible, but gave the others a challenge to go on beyond high school. Okay, because to be very frank with you, I had a loving family, but no money. Okay, and love is worth more than any kind of money. And that's how the village wrapped themselves around a poor Deas, Norman Deas, and said, this boy or whatever is going to make something of himself, so let us help. And the village did that. And it just undergirded more of what Reverend Forsythe and Miss Ruby did for Norman Deas. Back in the day, I think our teachers, starting with Miss Ruby and Reverend Forsythe on up to, even through college, there was a commitment to educate our children. And today, although I've not been in a classroom there, but just talking to children that are in high school today, a lot of them are extremely disrespectful. You could not do that at Miss Ruby or in Georgetown, because our teachers back in those days were committed to make sure that we were able to compete, in the big field. And that was their commitment. And they were so dedicated to that cause that when I went to Miss Ruby's school, very, very poor with economics, but very rich in love, that we had to, the men, the boys, not the men, had to wear a tie to school every day. And even today, when I go out into the public, I have on a tie because that's what Reverend Forsythe taught me. And not only taught, but it made me feel worthwhile and competitive. And after graduating from Smith, I went off to the military and then went to Washington and got a job, a good job at that time, as an accounting technician. And you dress professionally. You dress professionally, and your dress code sometimes takes you further than your education. Okay, because it should go hand in hand, but a lot of us get caught up in pride. I got an education and so forth, and I got a degree from this school and that school, and look like a rag doll, okay, unshaven or whatever. But dressing, to me, came out of the teaching of Reverend Forsythe also, because Faith Memorial School was a religious school, and they taught, great gosh, before you start your lesson, we had to go through all those creeds and so forth, and had to have your own personal Bible. And all of those things kind of made you feel good, feel important, and felt like if you do those things, nothing could hold you back. Nothing. And that's really what is still kind of driving me, even at this moment, that if you have a good mindset with love for your fellow person, and being able to go back to your village, Pawleys Island, and give back what has been given to you. When I came back to, retired and came back here, my church is in Pawleys Island, established scholarship so I could pay back some of what was given to me. And children were able to get some funds for books and from some other things through the scholarship from the church there. So, no, it just makes one feel good that you were able to help others because someone helped you.